Standing vs sitting desk setup. If you think that one of these working postures is better than the other, you're wrong. If you think that the combination of both is optimal, you're wrong again. There is another much more efficient approach to utilizing these setups that minimizes pain and discomfort during work time. I call it the multi-posture scheme. This practice is partially based on something that most people miss, which is that your working posture and your working setup are two different things. But before we get to all that, let's briefly examine how the standing and the sitting setups compare, which is the base of everything that I'll show you today. I'm going to make this comparison based on the two factors that determine a good working setup. The first one is to allow a non-stressful position for your joints and make it easy to hold this position for a long time. I will refer to this position as neutral posture. The second factor is to allow freedom of movement. Your setup shouldn't trap you in a fixed position. Our bodies are designed to move, so even the best posture can get problematic if you're fixed to it for an extensive amount of time. So how well do the standing and sitting setups do on these two factors? Starting with the first, do they promote the neutral posture in the same way? The neutral posture is characterized by the three natural curves of the spine and the shoulders back in line with your ears. The position of the neck and shoulders is determined by the height of the screen and the distance of the keyboard, which are steady parameters in both setups. So no differences there. What is different is how easy it is to hold the neutral position of the lumbar spine in each of these setups. On the sitting setup, as I explained in detail in my previous video, a stool is much better for that purpose compared to a chair. That's because you can easily bring the heels below your body, which moves the center of your mass back. Although you can take that position on a regular chair, its structure makes it much harder to hold it for long enough. To learn more about this, you can watch my previous video. On the other side, in the standing position, the lumbar spine falls in place with no effort since the legs are in line with the rest of the body. So, in regards to how well they promote the neutral posture, the standing setup is much easier compared to the sitting setup with a traditional chair. However, when comparing the standing setup with sitting on a stool, they are fairly similar. Now, what about the second factor that has to do with freedom of movement? Altering your position is essential in maintaining low joint stress and minimizing discomfort. However, altering your position doesn't mean altering your working setup, and this is what most people miss. Your working setup and your working posture are two different things. On the same working setup, you can have many different working postures that are all neutral. Neutral, neutral, and neutral, plus movement, plus stretching. All these options keep you in a neutral posture. On the sitting setup, the conventional chair offers almost zero freedom. You have two good working postures, back and front, and that's it. Everything else will be messy, and although there's nothing wrong with standing messy for a while, these positions become problematic if you use them for the majority of your time. If your sitting setup involves a regular chair, so probably 99% of those watching, the standing one is an easy winner on the second factor. However, if you compare the freedom of the standing setup with sitting on a stool, things become more even. On the stool, you have plenty of options to alter your position and move. The standing position still provides more freedom of movement, but the stool comes very close to that. So what is the conclusion of all this? Let's first take a look on the most traditional setups and exclude the stool from this analysis for a minute. The standing setup has some obvious benefits over the conventional sitting setup. It's easier to maintain a neutral posture on the lumbar spine and provides more freedom. With that in mind, should you shift from sitting to standing as your sole practice? Absolutely not. Both standing and sitting for a prolonged time can be detrimental for your health. We are all aware about the health risks that are related with sitting for a prolonged time, however, we are less aware of how standing for a prolonged time can be equally damaging. A study from 2000 discovered that 95% of people hospitalized due to varicose veins had jobs that involved prolonged standing. Standing long hours is associated with swelling in the feet, pain, and vascular issues. So both of these as standalone practices can cause issues, and of course this includes sitting all day on a stool. The sit-stand practice that combines sitting with standing is of course much better but doesn't solve the problem. Even dividing half of your time in each setup, in an 8-hour time span, you'll be forced to spend a total of 4 hours in each position, which is again a lot. So what should you do? Instead of having one working posture for each of your working setups and shifting from one to the other, you can have many different working postures for each of these setups and split your time into many more positions. This is what I call my multi-posture scheme, and is the map of all the working postures that I use during my work time. These positions are not random but predetermined. For example, on the standing setup, I have the main standing position that I use for most of my time. However, in addition to that, I exercise the freedom that the standing setup provides to have other neutral positions, stretches, and movements. Do you see how I maintain a fairly neutral posture in all of these positions? On the sitting setup with a traditional chair, I only have the default option and the one to the front with the heels below the body. That's why, although I keep the regular chair on my scheme, I rarely use it at the end of my day. However, with a stool that I've been using for over a year now, I have a variety of other positions and movements on my sitting setup. With this multi-posture scheme, I'm able to do what my body needs the most, which is alter my position and move. I know that these options may not be feasible for everyone due to their work environment, and I'd love to hear about your challenges in the comments. Nevertheless, keep in mind that the basic idea of incorporating various working postures into your workspace is always doable to some degree. Incorporating even 2 or 3 additional positions and movements will be highly rewarding, so I strongly suggest making an effort to explore that. If you're interested in improving your neck posture while you improve your desk setup, you can watch this next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.